Howdy folks, I hope you're all having a great 2025. To kick off the new year, I'll be going over and ranking some of my favorite movies I saw in 2024. I really tried to see as many movies as I could this year, and over the past few weeks I've been catching up on some films I've missed. Despite my efforts, there are still some films I haven't seen that could have made the list had I seen them on time. Some of those films include The Brutalist, Sing Sing, Queer, No Other Land, The Beast, and whatever else is on screen right now. If you want to see the completed list, you can see the list on my Letterboxd. Some honorable mentions include We Grown Now, Problemista, Furiosa, Flow, Look Back, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, Monkey Man, and Christmas Eve and Miller's Point. Let's start the list with number 20. Thelma, directed by Josh Margolin, is an incredibly enjoyable and sweet action movie that makes you want to call your grandma. Number 19 is His Three Daughters, directed by Azazel Jacobs. This is a grounded family drama that deals with death in surprisingly sweet ways. Led by three great lead actresses, the film gives you a fresh perspective on family. Number 18 is Between the Temples, directed by Nathan Silver, an anxiety-infused comedy that will have you laughing 1 minute and cringing the next. I mean, that dinner scene, I wanted to die. Number 17 is Rap World, directed by Danny Sharer and Connor O'Malley. This might be the hardest I've laughed all year. The very DIY filmmaking, perfectly replicating late 2000s culture, lends itself for a hilarious script that feel like it could have been real events. It's on YouTube, it's only 55 minutes, go check it out. Number 16 is Daughters, directed by Angela Patton and Natalie Ray. This is a phenomenal documentary about the prison system and how unfair it is, not only for the prisoners, but their families as well. Number 15 is Dee Dee, directed by Sean Wang, maybe the most relatable coming-of-age movie I've ever seen. It's a really funny and sweet and, as I said, relatable film, and because of its relatability, sometimes painful to watch. The film looks at these impulsive times in our lives with so much detail, and is one of the only films I've seen that understands the experience of growing up online. Number 14 is Sperm World, directed by Lance Oppenheim. This is my favorite documentary of the year, and is one I did not expect to be so emotional. Seriously, I cried multiple times during a film about sperm donors. The film is completely unafraid to show things that we may have never thought about before, and finds the emotion in it. Number 13 is Here, directed by Bas Divos. This is a very quiet and slow film, made up of simple interactions and moments. It's literally about a guy delivering soup to all his friends. It highlights the little things and how life can change after one interaction, paths we go down and how they shape who we become. Number 12 is Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers, a truly scary and suspenseful tale that stays incredibly investing to watch throughout the whole runtime. Flawless from all the technical aspects, the film is filled with a dark mood that creeps its way into each scene. The film builds up so much dread that ends in an immensely satisfying climax. Number 11 is A Real Pain, directed by Jesse Eisenberg. Coming in at a tight 90 minutes, the film will make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and it'll make you think about familial pain and depression. It talks about how we contribute to our family members' personal struggles, how we can be the cause for it, and how we can help them through it. One of the best screenplays of the year and one of the best performances by Kieran Culkin. Into the top 10 we have Evil Does Not Exist, directed by Ryosuke Hamaguchi. This is a film about a small Japanese town and the people's reaction to plans for a glamping site to be built in the forest, which will disrupt the environment. For the first hour and 40 minutes, the film is incredibly quiet and slow, building detail and establishing these characters' routines. It isn't until the last 5 minutes that we see what the film is really about. Evil exists everywhere, inside of us, but we never see it in us because it's just part of what we do. The film utilizes a completely subjective point of view to further show these themes. We spend the first part of the film with the townspeople, and we are on their side. Then we spend a significant amount of time with the people working on the glamping project, and we see that they are not bad people. This puts the viewer into a dilemma, where we don't know who to root for. Then the film hits you with an ending that forces us to think about our own hypocrisies. The cinematography and music are incredible. There's a shot of a literal steaming pile of cow poop, and it's one of the best shots I've seen all year. These aspects add to the film's very ghostly feeling. Number 9 is La Chimera, directed by Alice Rohrwacher. This film follows a man who has an incredible ability to find ancient Etruscan tombs. Much like Evil Does Not Exist, this is a very quiet and slow film. The film deals with death, love, and frustrations with the corporate world in ways that are incredibly captivating and borders on experimental experimental at times. There are scenes where a character will talk directly to the camera will flip completely upside down, a character's running will be sped up to look like something out of a silent film, and on top of that, the film's very poetic and metaphor-filled way of showing its themes makes for a fascinating viewing experience. The film shows people's ability to change for the better for the people we love. Even after tragedy, there are still those who care about us. We see our central character, Arthur, played by Josh O'Connor, slowly break down this barrier he has around him as he warms up to the people who want to enter his life. The grave robbing that he and his friends do starts as a way for him to find what he lost, but ends up giving his life new, reformed meaning. Number 8 is The Substance, directed by Coralie Farge. What a wild time this is. This is a body horror film about an aging actress who finds a mysterious drug that creates a younger, more attractive, better version of herself. The film stars Demi Moore as Elizabeth, Margaret Qualley as Sue, the younger version of her, and Dennis Quaid as a cartoon character. This is probably the most fun I've had with a movie this year. Despite being over 2.5 hours, the film flies by. It's an absolute wild trip that's incredibly funny and over the top and really gross at the same time. The makeup department went off. There's some really gross looking stuff in here. The film uses these bright colors and loud music and sound design to draw you in. What it says about beauty standards and how women are treated in the industry is not at all subtle, but it's not about what it's saying, but how it's saying it. And it's saying it in the most entertaining, over-the-top, campy, loud, gross way it can. Number 7 is I Saw the TV Glow, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. This film follows a teenage boy named Owen whose life changes when an older girl introduces him to a TV show called The Pink Opaque. As Owen's life begins to go downhill, he starts wishing it was someone else, someone on the other side of the TV screen. As more is taken from his life, the more his loneliness grows. He knows something must be done, but everything in his life is keeping him back. The film was a very cold and transcendental style, feeling like we're on another planet, like our main character does not belong in this body. This feeling mirrors the filmmaker's own trans experience, and it is shown incredibly personally, while still being experimental and playing around with the form. The film shows nostalgia not as something comforting, but cold and oppressive, and analyzes how media can have an impact on our lives. It ties it up all with a very haunting ending that will leave you thinking about the film for months. Number 6 is Adam Elliott's quiet and deeply personal stop-motion film, Memoir of a Snail. This is my favorite animated movie of the year, and one of the saddest of the year as well. It follows Grace, a young girl who was separated from her twin brother after the death of their father. We follow her into adulthood as the twins try to reunite, even though they're on opposite sides of Australia. For like 90 minutes, one bad thing happens to this character after another. Loss after loss, tragedy after tragedy. We see Grace grow more depressed and lonely. Eventually, we see her make a change, take control of her life, and the rest of her life is looking hopeful, despite living the first few decades knowing almost nothing but sadness. It's a rare type of film that makes you feel like you've witnessed a whole life unfold before your eyes. The film highlights the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. Even though the few glimmers of hope get taken away, Grace continues to move forward and improve her life. The animation is phenomenal and gives the film a very lived-in feeling. This is a true roller coaster of emotions, one that will break you apart and put you back together again. Number 5 is perhaps the exact opposite of the very small and quiet Memoir of a Snail. It's Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve. It feels like this film has kind of been forgotten about because it came out pretty early in the year, but it's still one of my favorite theater-going experiences of the year. It feels great to see a film that feels like a genuine event, a larger-than-life epic that engrosses you the whole way through. The technical aspects are flawless. It's one of those films where every single shot is perfect, the action is phenomenal and endlessly entertaining to watch. But what sets it apart from other movies that are pretty much mindless action is the attention to the character motives and their arcs. All these characters and this world feel so fleshed out, which makes seeing them go head-to-head so engaging. Paul Atreides' arc into this sort of anti-hero and religious figure is fascinating to watch and gives an interesting perspective on religion and abuse of power, and it paints it all in an endlessly immersive sci-fi action epic. Number 4 is something special to me because it was the first film I ever saw at a film festival. It is Sean Baker's Anora, which I watched back at the Philadelphia Film Festival. This film talks about a New York City sex worker who impulsively gets married to the son of Russian oligarchs, and what happens when the goons from Russia are sent to get the marriage annulled. Sean Baker is one of the defining faces of the American indie film scene, and this is his first film to really push him into the mainstream. Despite the film's mainstream appeal and larger scale, Baker manages to hold on to his indie roots and show themes he's shown throughout his career in maybe the most fleshed out way yet. Baker has made numerous films about sex workers, but this feels like his most detailed depiction of the business yet. It never judges, just shows the industry in the most most faithful and realistic way it can. So it's really impressive that such a grounded base and a story with Russian oligarchs and flights to Vegas and chases feels so believable. As I said in my video for it, the film is incredible at balancing tones, going from a rom-com to a chase film to a courthouse screwball comedy to a subtle character introspective, and never losing your attention throughout the 2.5-hour runtime. A lot of the reason this roller coaster of tones feels so natural is the star-making performance by Mikey Madison, maybe my favorite performance of the year. The film acts as an examination of sex work and a breakdown of the American dream that manages to be incredibly captivating and funny. Sean Baker, you did it again. At number 3, we have Challengers, the first of 2 Luca Guadagnino films to come out in 2024. And he has another film coming out this year. This man is cooking. It follows a love triangle between tennis players that lasts years and changes their lives. I can't quite say I've ever seen a film like this. The cinematography, music, performances, all the technical aspects, they transport you into the story, keeping you fully immersed. You feel like you're on another world. You really get invested into all the drama and layers in these characters' relationship. The film examines these power dynamics, betrayal, trust, and these conflicting feelings with a clear attention to the characters and their motivations. It takes these characters who have known each other for years and pits their motivations and emotions against each other, and you can't help but watch. We spend a considerable amount of time with each of the 3 central characters and get a real understanding of each of them. We feel for each of them and get where each of them are coming from with their decisions. This deep understanding of the characters puts us at a crossroads of who is the protagonist and who is the antagonist. These relationships are endlessly gripping to watch and keep your eyes glued to the screen. 2024 was sort of the return of sex in movies. Between this, Honora, and Baby Girl, we've had a revival in films centered around sexual interaction. But it was as I was writing this that I realized there is no actual sex in Challengers. Instead, the scenes where the characters are completely open physically, putting their whole selves down for the other, are the tennis scenes. We learn everything we need to about the characters' relationships by watching them play tennis. The screenplay is absolutely brilliant. This film is an absolute masterclass in direction, writing, and performances. Number 2 is another film that means a lot to me. I feel honored to have seen something like this in theaters, and I've championed it for months, which is why it's a little painful that there was one 2024 film better than it. My number 2 film of the year is Hundreds of Beavers, directed by Mike Cheslak. I've seen it twice now, and it's an absolute comedic revelation, not only for being hilarious, leaving me with a big old grin the whole way through, but for being a film that feels like nothing I've ever seen. This is probably the closest YouTube and film have ever come, the very DIY, rough around the edges feel, and that's because it was made for only about $150,000. There's some crazy stuff in this movie that makes it shocking it was made for such a low budget. This is a true monument in indie filmmaking, and I'm glad I was able to support it by seeing it in theaters. Seeing how far this film went, cultivating its own cult following, is really great to see. Not to mention, it's one of the most original and creative comedy films I've seen in a while. It takes a slapstick comedy and modernizes it, utilizing all the resources it can to bring these wild ideas to life. This is really an achievement in independent filmmaking, and I can't wait to see what this team does next. Give it a watch if you're looking for a great time. And my favorite film of the whole year, I believe, is the only film on this list that would be considered the first of its kind. I am, of course, talking about Ramel Ross's monumental Nickel Boys, an adaptation of Colson Whitehead's book of almost the same name. This film follows the friendship between 2 black teens who attend a cruel reform school in 1960s Jim Crow era South. This film is most known for being filmed entirely from the point of view of the 2 main characters. That might sound a little gimmicky, but it is truly revolutionary. It gives us such an intimate and personal experience, giving us a new perspective on these tragedies. We experience them directly and vividly, each camera movement feeling so intentional. Every time the camera looks at the ground, ignoring the person who's talking to our protagonist, to emphasize shame or anger is so brilliant. The director said that the whole edit was planned out before they even started shooting, which is just insane. Not to mention the scenes of archival footage to show the events of the time in various movies, shows, or news stories that tie into the film's story and characters. All these technical aspects are borderline experimental and work incredibly well. On top of all that, the film is completely investing to watch. The friendship at the center of the story feels wholly believable. This believability makes the sweet moments all the more satisfying, and the tragic ones all the more devastating. Ethan Heresy and Brandon Wilson deserve all the recognition they're getting for having to adapt to this new method of filmmaking and for still being captivating to watch. There are some scenes that take place decades after the 60s, filmed from directly behind the main character. This out-of-body, distant way of shooting brilliantly shows PTSD. And these scenes also show how America remembers these tragedies, or more often, how they are forgotten. In the middle of writing this, I saw one review on Letterboxd that said the first-person POV doesn't show how it was, but how it's remembered. I didn't even think about it that way until seeing that. There are so many ways to interpret this film, all of them genius. This is a beautiful, multi-layered film that will be studied and remembered for a long time. Alright, I've yapped enough. 2024 was a great year, and let's hope 2025 will be even better. I would like to thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow my Letterboxd, stay safe, especially if you're affected by the fires in LA, and drink water. Also, rest in peace, David Lynch. Bye.